This is a tweet from Julio Rosas. Andy No has, quote, tweeted it. At the Hamas celebration rally in Times Square, organized by the far-left socialists and Palestinian nationalists, a speaker talks about the Islamist attacks that killed hundreds of Israelis, mostly civilians. The crowd cheers. I hope you're ready to hear this. This is it's just awful.
And paraglided across.
I'm sorry.
Early morning on Saturday, October 7th, our resistance stormed illegal settlements and paraglided across colonial borders.
All right.
In this operation, and Aqsa Flood,
Sister, are you part of the organizers?
resistance fires more than 5,000 rockets.
Wait for it.
Reaching Tel Aviv.
Do you hear that?
Reaching Tel Aviv.
Reaching Tel Aviv. Okay. In a conflict, let's say you're in a prison. You're in a prison. They say it's an open air prison. You're locked up and you're like, it is unjust. I was put here against my will and my parents were here. And so you decide to start bombing the town next door with a bunch of civilians who live nearby.
It's like
you're not breaking out. You're not.
It's like a sally out kind of. If you're in a siege situation and you're the one that's under siege, sometimes they'll sally out and try and cause havoc in the enemy camp, the enemy siege camp, and then come back and kill as much and destroy as much as they can. And that's kind of what this was a
well, imagine if they didn't kill a bunch of civilians, targeted the military only, and were seen on video clearing civilians out and telling them to get back, and then issued a statement saying, you know, our issue is with the occupying force of the Israeli government who have oppressed and suppressed us. We will take every effort to protect the lives of civilians. That's not what they're doing. They're outright saying, in quotes, they will execute civilians to get what they want.
And
Bro, there is evil in this world.
It's not tactically smart from their standpoint either, because now there's justification for them being completely wiped out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
this video in particular just reminds me of Pavlov's dog, right? She says colonizers and the crowd who's all raised in the West, they're all American, cheer because they know from every public school history lesson that the word colonization is always bad. I mean, they can't see that there might be any bias in this. I mean, obviously they've chosen to go to this, so they have their own leaning. But with this argument, it's just, I don't know. I hate that this is something that people are going to decide they have an opinion on all of a sudden because of the media slant, because really it's an area of the world that most people don't understand well enough to truly understand what's going on.
They have signs at this protest saying, end U.S. funding of Israel. Many of the people who are arguing that we not fund Israel, it's not a principled argument about America first and saving the American people. It is them secretly trying to get Israel to be in a weakened position so that they can start genociding people. That's it. Look, I'm not saying that Israelis like Palestinians. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying these people here are referring to Hamas as their fighters. There's another video where they say the same thing, where these activists and there's Palestinians here, outright say that Hamas is them, and they're doing this intentionally.
Konstantin Kisin made an excellent tweet, I think it was yesterday, and saying, you people in the West, and he was kind of like, you've been told for so long that they hate you for your freedom. And it's not that. They hate you because you have more power than them. And if they had more power than you, they would conquer you, colonize you, and turn you into something much worse. So get your head straight. And I've been so anti-war, I put it in quotes, but like for 20 years, like, no, don't. But like, I can only fathom what would happen if the United States was taken over by marauders or barbarians that would rape and kill. Like that would be... It's unconscionable. We cannot allow that to happen.
This is the far left. The Democratic Socialists of America promoted this rally. And at this rally, they celebrated the targeting of civilians. Ocasio-Cortez is a card-carrying member of the Democratic Socialists of America.
Has she spoken up about it?
I don't think so, other than the squad called for a ceasefire, which is look, man, yes, okay, we don't want any more fighting, but you are hard-pressed to be like, hey, we stormed in, killed a bunch of civilians, took a bunch of hostages, now ceasefire.
It just seems like arrogance on their part, right? But we called for it over here in America, so you guys should stop.
I think the Hamas perhaps thought that taking the hostages would prevent any kind of retaliation. and they miscalculated. And then when the bombs started dropping in Gaza, they were like, "We need to stop
why
this
would
right
it
now."
stop retaliation?
No, they're saying they're gonna execute the civilians
In response to now the bombs, but I think they thought that if they took the civilians a lot of captives, then they'd have some time.
No, I disagree.
Really?
The Al Qassam Brigade sets up rocket depots in hospitals and schools and residential areas on purpose to force Israel to strike civilian targets and then complain that they're striking civilian targets. The argument from many of the pro-Palestine side is, where should their resistance fighters set up at all? Because there's no military bases there.
And where do the people go? What do we do? Do we take them in as refugees into the United States?
No.
Well, a lot of people are saying expect to see, millions of refugees now.
And this is another thing which maybe we'll touch on. You talk about an open border, hundreds of thousands of people coming across. How many of those people are like sleeper cell?
Yes,
Hamas
it's a serious concern, right?
going
This
to
is
Atlanta.
true of all kinds of things. Saying you're a refugee doesn't necessarily mean, and that's terrible because there are people in awful positions who do need support and help. But opening every border in the U.S. because we've decided to get involved in wars that we are ultimately not sure how we're going to end anyways is sort of not the solution, right? We're creating more problems for everyone all the time. It is one of the reasons that you have to be so critical of the Biden administration, which is that they were not proactive on the border the way they should have been, and they have also been club-footed when it comes to international diplomacy. They have not put America in a strong position, so we're actually, in my opinion, not a very strong position to help anyone in any way.
So there are a lot of reasons for this, and I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot. It's not a rhetorical question. It's a little question for you guys. For what reason is the U.S. providing military funding to Israel?
To protect the Suez Canal. It just depends on how you're looking at it.
Well, that's Egypt, though. That's the Sinai Peninsula.
Yeah, but Israel's got warplanes, and Egypt's also on our side. It's on the
right,
side.
but Israel is not on. The Suez is controlled by Egypt.
Shipping maybe, but it
Shipping?
kind of guards the Suez. It's not obviously the Suez is in Egypt. Yeah,
It's on the so the Sinai Peninsula is where the Suez is, and then you have Israel further east of there. So perhaps there's a strategic military, point because it gives them the eastern side of the Suez.
yeah.
I suppose
It always was too, because the Romans would sail over there. Well, they would do it through Egypt, but then they would pick their boats up and walk them across before the canal was ever built, and then put it back down and then sail to India.
I mean, that it probably is the most logical reason. The control of canals is massive. I mean, right now we're looking at the conflict in Ukraine has a lot to do with the Bosphorus. It was the Bosphorus Strait.
Yep, that's going through Turkey.
That gets that opens up the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. So taking Russia's warm water port in Crimea, if NATO were to acquire or the EU were to absorb Ukraine, would be very bad for Russia. So now Russia's trying to secure this whole land bridge into Crimea because that's where they have access to the Black Sea. And then there's other points of access they have into the Black Sea as well. But this is a major naval base for them. And then, of course, you have what may be the Suez. Obviously, the Panama Canal was massively and strategically important for us to control. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like 10 years ago, China was trying to build a Nicaraguan canal, which is insane because the landmass is massive, whereas Panama is very thin. And then with the Nicaraguan canal, they would have to decimate this natural aquifer that everyone got water from. Ultimately, I think the program was abandoned, however. But it could be. It could be that the U.S., we hear this all the time, that Israel's our most important ally in the region. I'm like, okay, I guess in the sense that in terms of the form of government and the perception, like the world view, yes, that makes sense. But what is the actual strategic military purpose, I wonder?
Anybody got a better idea than the Suez?
I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, I think ultimately America thinks of itself as historically Israel's ally, and so it feels the need to intervene. It's a question that I think everyone should ask themselves, like, what really is the strategic purpose of getting involved at this point? And I honestly don't have a great answer for it. And I think a lot of Americans will feel that way. So should we continue to, we've already moved military ships closer to Israel. We are preparing to get involved in more ways than we are already now. We already spent billions of dollars on Ukraine this year. I mean, this is not something that we can really do. And we're going into an election.
I wonder if this strike is partly because they know the U.S. is fractured and distracted.
Yeah, speaking of distracted, Jack Posobiec tweeted out earlier, here it is, White House staffer, this is from 2 hours ago. He's saying that this is from a White House staffer. Biden keeps bringing up Ukraine during briefings on Israel. He's getting the two wars mixed up. Austin Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense?
Secretary of Defense, yeah.
Barely showing up to them anymore, the meetings anymore. Blinken making more decisions than anyone. So you talk about confusion within the leadership of the United States right now. Biden is he's probably
struggling.
concerned about getting caught for his business stuff
and also,
in Ukraine.
we've all had concerns about Biden's mental faculties always. So maybe it's just, the old age catching up with him.
You know, they had a barbecue yesterday. They were at a barbecue at the White House. Biden and his wife and a bunch of White House staff, or the day before or yesterday, like during the bombs dropping in Israel, Biden's throwing a party.
Well, but to be fair, during the bombs,
cancel the party.
No, during the
Get
bombs,
to the war room.
No, during the bombs going off in Sudan or Somalia, they're also having barbecues.
Yeah, but it's Israel.
So what? This is the problem I have with many of the people who are like, we need to intervene in Ukraine, or Israel's our ally. I'm like, China's running concentration camps where they're genociding Uyghur Muslims.
I was on Twitter.
Are we gonna go to every single country on the planet whenever a bomb falls?
No, but if one of your military allies is under attack, you go to the war room, and that's where you stay for the next 28 hours or whatever. I was on Twitter for like 12 hours yesterday. Biden can do it. He should be. He's our commander. He's a military commander. When bombs drop, commander, go to war room.
Considering, and I accept this, considering the severity of the escalation, yes, I agree that he should have been. But it does frustrate me that the news goes nuts when like Ukraine goes off. And I'm like, a border dispute with Russia and a neighboring nation? Why do I care? Why aren't we talking about what's going on in, say, these African nations? Or
in
Sudan.
Azerbaijan with the Armenians. I mean,
there you go.
We didn't intervene with the IRA, but way back in the day, there has always been a stance that we pick and choose. And I'm glad that you brought up the Uyghur Muslims, because we still sent our Olympic team. We made a big show of saying we're not going to send any of our officials or diplomats, yet we still went with it. I mean, the double standard for what we are allowed to be outraged on humanitarian platforms, it's just ridiculous. And I think ultimately we know that this is not based on any sort of bleeding heart dedication to anything. It's always about something strategic and powerful. And in this case, we've already put ourselves in a weak position. So what are we? I think that's like, I can't get past the point of what is the purpose of this.
My question is, what about Israel makes people's brains stop working? No question.
I think it's
just like what,
because of religion, because of Judaism. They feel so connected to the land itself.
I'm not talking about people who are Jewish or Israeli. I'm talking about right now on Twitter. Right now, even in our chats, there are people whose like brains shut off the moment the subject of Israel comes up. They stop listening to arguments. When it comes to Ukraine, you can have a rational conversation about intervention. Israel happens and it's just like hyper polarized. No matter what you say, you're wrong. No matter what you say, you're right. It's just there's no rational thought whatsoever. It's the most annoying thing in the world. I used to have a chat server, and the most annoying thing in the world was people always tried to make Israel a subject, like to talk about it when it was not even in the news. Whatever it is, there are places in the world right now where there are tribal factions locking up, oppressing, beating, and murdering other factions. There are China, for instance, but for some reason it's Israel. It's so annoying. I'm like, hey, okay, let's like check out the history of what's going on, and they're like, the people right now, the conspiracy theory is that Israel knew it was going to happen and let it happen so they could justify flattening Gaza. And it's just like, okay, dude.
Yeah, I heard
at any point, everyone is just going to choose what they want to be the reality.
Yeah.
Okay? There are videos of thing happening. If you're going to make the assumptions that Israel knew, there's a report saying Egypt warned them of something big 10 days ago. That doesn't mean anything. Saying, hey, something's coming, watch out, something big. What are they going to act on that? Okay, I guess we'll secure something or whatever. We'll look for something big. But people just lose their minds. And we've had people on this show where they just get really, really, really angry at the subject and start ranting about it. And I'm like, what is up with people, dude?
Certainly World War II, the way Hitler exterminated 6 million, according to historical records, of Jewish people, has caused an emotional attachment to just the entire concept of Judaism and extermination of humanity. So that's a big part of it. It's like never again kind of mentality. Like I can't even go there. I can't even consider that. And it's like because it happened. And honestly, the Jewish population has been, for whatever reason, persecuted throughout history in different countries. I think in England, they were actually kicked out of the country by one of the kings of England at one point, just completely tossed out because of their, I don't know, bank. What was it?
It has to do with usury and the fact that they allow usury within it. But it's a whole other thing.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.